Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today I want to talk about the ultimate topic. Was Souls PvP an accident? Was it a happy accident? Did From Software make PvP good on purpose? Or was it simply a fluke? Obviously I don't have the answers for that, but I think it's interesting to go back and think about Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, as they were mainly like the starting point for all of this. And one thing that you should always remember when thinking about Souls PvP is that for the most part, a lot of the appeal for Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls came from the jank that came with it, like the happy accident jank. And what I mean by that is the toggle escape, that was definitely not on purpose. All the fancy backstab tech, that also wasn't on purpose, and we know that for sure because backstab mechanic is something that From Software has tried to flesh out over each Souls game that they've made. So just there we have a little bit of a clue as to what From Software is thinking. So initially they introduced that backstab mechanic and it was pretty janky, but people still liked it, and it went like pretty well with the feel of Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls. And there was like a whole like gameplay around backstabs. However, we can definitely agree that this was mostly gameplay that happened, or good gameplay depending on if you like that stuff or not, that happened on accident. Now, when it comes to games that came after, you're looking at Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne even, and Elden Ring, there was definitely a shift in the backstab mechanic. The backstab mechanic became more of a mechanic that was on rail, basically. Like they tried to fix some things about it, they tried to modify it in order for the backstab mechanic to be clearly as From Software wanted it to be. So I think it's fair to say that when it comes to Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, the backstab mechanic was for sure like a happy accident. But when it comes to games like, let's say the most recent one, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Elden Ring, the backstab mechanic was definitely more fleshed out, and I think it's also fair to look at it as an intended mechanic, whether you like it or not. So if you prefer the old school stuff, the Dark Souls 1 and the Demon Souls, I think it was mostly by accident that they came up with this mechanic. And for the more recent ones, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, and even Bloodborne, definitely more on purpose. The reason why I'm not putting Dark Souls 2 in there is I think Dark Souls 2 is really a transition point between the backstab mechanic between Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, because the mechanic is like it has some flaws still from the previous systems. It doesn't have the appeal of the previous system, and it has it's basically inferior to both systems, I believe. Like the backstabs in Dark Souls 2 have some of the jank of Dark Souls 1, but don't have all the tech that are related to it. So that's why I'm not putting it in there, and that's normal. That's like a necessary kind of in-between when it comes to like gameplay improvement and stuff like that. So that's one aspect. Obviously there's a lot more than just the backstab, but that's like one clue that we have throughout like the development of these games. And again, we can look at Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls toggle escape and how they removed that mechanic, and it never really came back in any intended way. So as much as it was a good mechanic back then for the original games, they never really revisited it for the modern one. There's still some sort of escapes that are possible in other Souls game. Like for instance, even in Elden Ring, you have a little of a bigger window to escape out of its stun, because you can attack faster than you can roll out of its stun. And so if you're trying to get out of a combo or get out of being attacked by doing Bloodhound step or quick step, it's going to come out faster than if you were going to try to roll out of getting hit by anything. So again, these decisions, I don't know if they make that decision on purpose, honestly, because from a gameplay point of view, like if you are in a fight, in a 1v1, let's say, and you're attacking someone, and they're able to mash out of stun faster than they can roll out of stun, it creates a gameplay problem like what we're seeing in Elden Ring right now, where the best play you can do in the vast majority of cases is simply to attack instead of to roll, which is a bit strange given how you're always supposed to reward the player for aggressing the opponent. So if you get punished by aggressing the opponent, it's basically counterintuitive. Then you're rewarded for untechnical plays and even being passive to an extent. So again, this sort of stuff, it's hard to tell if they do that on purpose or not, but I would argue that a mechanic like that is definitely not done on purpose for the good and the bad. When it comes to like weapon design, there's a ton of weapons in From Software games that are clearly designed with PvP in mind. I mean, a lot of weapons are fairly useless when it comes to PvE. Weapons that have like unique attacks where the timing is really designed to catch the other player. I think the biggest example we had of that was in Dark Souls 3, the Lido Great Hammer. The whole Ash of War for Lido with the rock that had splash damage on the floor, that was really something that was clearly designed with PvP in mind. And to another extent in Elden Ring, I think a good example we have of a really well-designed attack is the halberd running attack. Because the halberd running attack is a weapon that has large forward momentum, it's reactable, and it's strafable. And in Elden Ring, there's not that many attacks that are reliably strafable, but the halberd is one of them. And so there had to be someone who decided that this halberd attack was strafable. It's not something that happened on accident. That was a deliberate decision. And stuff like this is definitely done by someone who has an idea, or at least an understanding, of how these games are played. But that doesn't mean that everyone at the studio, for instance, would have an idea or an understanding of these things. Let's say, for example, this was done by one animator. Like, he was tasked to make animation for this weapon. He could make whatever he wanted, and he decided to go with that. And because this guy knew what he was doing, he kept in mind the tracking, he kept in mind these things. By the way, like, I'm theory crafting here, like, we're just like doing like a thought exercise. Like, this isn't exactly like how it happened, or at least we don't know. But that's not what's important. The important is just, the example, the idea. So let's say that animator knew what he was doing and had these things in mind when he made that animation. Then the final product got accepted by the all-almighty Miyazaki, who blessed him with an increase of salary. And then the guy kept on about his day and eventually left the studio and is not with us anymore. But you see where I'm going with this? The next animation, let's say the two-handed thrusting sword, was done by the new guy who came in to replace, the last veteran that left the studio. And this guy is really, like, he was tasked with making a fast attack that was good for the most part, for like fast thrust damage and whatnot. And he made the thrusting sword, which had perfect tracking, a good looking animation, because that's what animators do, or are tasked to do. They need to make like good looking animations. Although, to be fair, in my example that I gave, the thrusting sword animation existed like way before Elden Ring, so that's not a good example for that matter. But just for the sake of this thought experiment, you could really pick like any weapon with any animation. Let's pick one of the new weapon class that's like a little bit outrageous. Let's take BathedInBrena, for instance. well, back in Blade, the animation that was created for back in Blade, maybe the guy was tasked for like maybe the guy that was animating this attack was tasked to make something that looked like original, different from other things, and so he created an attack that has like insane forward momentum, where you keep the forward momentum as you're running. Well, sometimes this sort of stuff, it can go well because it's an original idea and no other weapons like that exist within the game. So because of that, there is a potential for the weapon to be unique, fun, and be appealing in some capacity. It's basically the philosophy of throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks. And I think that's what a lot of what From Software is all about. To me, from an outside perspective, it looks like how they run the studio at FromSoft. They give like pretty much free reign or free like some sort of creative freedom to whoever is tasked at making whatever, and then they come in after and tweak whatever is necessary. So in the case of the back-end blade, for instance, well, obviously the weapon does too much damage and has too much forward momentum, low recovery, like too high of a stun, but these things are not necessarily like related to the animation of the weapon itself. Like, let me give you an example. While the weapon might not have been designed especially for PvP in mind, it was designed clearly to be something different from the rest of the game. Now, when it comes to the balancing of the weapon, that's usually done by someone different. Like, whoever decides the damage values, the stun of the weapon, the poise damage of the weapon. And clearly this person didn't know what they were doing. So where I'm going with this is a studio like FromSoft is a big organization, and while you might have one guy who knows what they're doing, the other might not. And so you're gonna get, in a game like this that has so many items and so many mechanics, you're gonna get a lot of inconsistencies. You're gonna get a situation where one guy knows exactly what he's doing and he's creating something very thoughtful, and then you're gonna have another guy that doesn't know what he's doing and has a job that's more important for us, for the final product or for the final version of a weapon, and that's going to make the experience either better or worse. So for the most part, to answer the original question, I think some people at FromSoft know what they're doing and some other people clearly don't. So that's just my theory. That's how I look at it. Obviously, this is always all like something that's very both speculative and opinion based, as you know, a lot of casuals like these games. But from a PvP perspective, I think when you have a large part of the experienced community who sees the same flaws in the game, I think it's definitely worth acknowledging that when you have a large portion of very experienced players that see the same thing, that these flaws are very real and they're not necessarily as much of a matter of preference as opposed to you know, something that could just simply be better. I'm not saying objective because I don't think there's anything that really objective about this subject, but there's definitely an experience factor that comes in this. Also, final note, I'm still watching the same clip as you guys. This was a long-ass invasion, and the players we were fighting were very latent, and at this point in the fight, we were run out of E-lings, so we had to play very, very careful, and these guys kept chewing through our teammates, and we couldn't really help them as much as we would like, because we were out of E-lings. And so, unfortunate situation for us. And we had a moment in this invasion where we had a teammate and the host was by himself, but unfortunately the teammate didn't know what he was doing, so he kept hitting me and I couldn't finish the host, and then the host resummoned, and then I was out of eating, and then the phantom was coming. So this whole invasion was sort of like artificially like dragged for a very long time, simply because of both latency and just the timing of the invaders that came in the world. Because when we had decent invaders, I couldn't help them as much, and when we had and when I had you know, healing items and stuff like that, I had teammates that would die like very quickly and stuff like this. So yeah, good invasion though. It's always more entertaining to have invasions where there's a teammate against two enemy players that know what they're doing. It makes for better fights, more interesting fights. So unfortunately, to go back to the initial topic of the vid, there's definitely a lack of understanding of PvP from people like Miyazaki and other like higher ups that are responsible for more important decisions, because you guys and I both know that the reduction of player limit in Elden Ring is really what hurt the game the most compared to, let's say, Dark Souls 3. And if they had ever touched PvP, or if they understood PvP in the slightest, decisions like that would simply never be made. So I think we're gonna end this this voiceover with this. Guys, I wish you guys a happy rest of the day, and enjoy the end of this invasion. Alright, take care everyone. Okay. Got a teammate though. Baby turtle somewhere here. The baby turtle was here, but oh, there he comes. All right, good. I don't know if I like this because I lose priority. This guy, it's early. Like, I can easily react to Halberd, but every time this guy does it, I get hit by it. Like, he definitely hits early. I have to be careful because I'm out of healings. He's not. He's forcing trades here. It's like I can whiff punish him, but he's just forcing trades with his cat. And we can't engage too much, unfortunately. Every turtle's winning though. Just need to stay up a little bit. bad. That's good. Sorry, baby turtle, but kind of low here. Yo, Steel, thanks for the raid. Welcome in, guys. We're fighting some latent Hunter Stonger. But we have Baby Turtle with us. We've been here for a while, but the challenge is that the latency is quite high. Make sure my teammate's nearby. Alright, he's getting low as well, actually. I don't really like TS here because of the latency, but maybe I'd be able to like get out. Oh, get the boss. That would end the invasion. I don't think anyone wants that. Baby turtle at? I don't see him. Yeah, they don't see him either. Something must be back there. Alright. See what we can do here. Good hit. Funny how the boss did no damage. Finally, dude. What the fuck, dude? Taking so goddamn long because of their damn lat.